on these things that really matter to people, that matter to everybody in their day-to-day lives all across this country, Clay, if the GOP goes on offense, stops taking a knee, and actually gets the messaging right, we could be back on track here for the red wave we've been hoping for. What have we been saying? What has been the mantra? I am not a fan of face tattoos, but if we had face tattoos on this show, it would be GOP needs to talk about the following three things: crime, the border, and the economy, right? We've been just hammering this and all this GOP talking about all this other stuff and Ukraine and, all the Ukraine. No. If we're going to win back power because that's the only thing that stops the libs. One of the things, Clay, I found most illuminating for a lot of folks over the whole Martha's Vineyard migrant fiasco is these libs. There is a Democrat mentality that has taken hold of about 30% of the country. You cannot shame them with hypocrisy. It does not matter. You just have to stop them. Like the same thing we're seeing with COVID. You have to take the political power out of their hands to keep doing crazy things. The way to do that, the border, crime, the economy, hitting those topics. And over at MSNBC, Steve Kornacki is one of the smarter guys at MSNBC. He actually crunches the numbers. He looks at the data. He's rational. He's a sharp fellow. What'd you say?
He's rational.
Yes, he's rational. He's one of the sharper analysts over at MSNBC for sure. And here he is saying, Republicans, you got three things that you're going to win on.
What about the issues and the strengths for each party? What you see here is you ask people, which party would you prefer on these issues? These are the three issues where Republicans score the strongest: the border, crime, and economy, by a margin of 36 points, 23 points, and 19 points. Voters say they would prefer the Republicans when it comes to these issues.
I think he was 20 plus points on the border, just so everybody understands what a huge, because we have been talking about that, hitting that hard for months and months now. And I'm glad that because of the Martha's Vineyard situation, it's coming to the forefront. But on these things that really matter to people, that matter to everybody in their day-to-day lives all across this country, Clay, if the GOP goes on offense, stops taking a knee, and actually gets the messaging right, we could be back on track here for the red wave we've been hoping for.
Yeah, in particular on crime, what I would say is every state, every city, if you are a congressional candidate, Senate candidate, gubernatorial candidate, there is a story like Eliza Fletcher in Memphis in your community. And the reason why I keep coming back to Eliza Fletcher is completely innocent mom of two young children, kindergarten teacher in Memphis, who is out for a 10-mile early morning jog before she comes back home to get her family ready to start the day. And she's murdered by a man who should have never been released from prison. And also, it is emerging in Memphis, had already sexually assaulted another woman since he was released early. So if they had been able to if they'd had the resources in Memphis, they would have caught this guy. He should have never gotten out early, but they would have caught him on the sexual assault before he committed this murder. There is a story like that crystallizes the fear, the danger, and the reality of our rapidly spiraling crime rates in your state, in your district, in your region. Use it, not just to focus on that particular story, but to tell the larger narrative story here of lack of safety in the communities. Buck, you mentioned Oregon and the fact that we've got a competitive race, and Christine Drazen is going to join us in this show in the next hour. Portland, I guarantee you when we talk to her, she is hammering Portland. Portland has seen a quadrupling of its murder rate on average since 2019 to today. They had around 20 murders a year on average for most of the 21st century. And then they went over 80 when you look at the post-George Floyd era, the soft-on-crime era. That resonates, and it particularly resonates, who it resonates with? Moms. People who have kids, people who are worried about the safety of their family that might be swing voters. crime, there is an example that you can use in every single community of completely innocent people being murdered because police aren't being able to do their job, and Democrats have failed in blue states and blue cities to protect their constituents.
People are also noticing that viral video from over the weekend with the guy swinging the axe at people and breaking property, threatening to mutilate people with an axe in a crowded McDonald's in Lower Manhattan. He was held for 2 hours and has since that incident, which went viral, been walking the streets of New York like nothing happened. And now people are going to say, oh, but he will face justice. No, he won't actually, because he's going to go up against a criminal justice system in New York that, and this is the case in every major city in the country right now, pretty much. You might be able to find me a few exceptions, but every major city, every large city, you have a system that now has shifted toward being just far too complacent, far too soft on crime, far too willing to excuse the horrific stuff that is going on a day-to-day basis. And it's getting so bad, Clay, and this is a real sign of things, that Hochul, the governor of New York, who became the governor, just remind everybody, because Governor Cuomo had to resign under pressure because of groping, not for sending seniors with COVID back into nursing homes and then lying about the numbers, covering the whole thing up. All true. That's not why the Democrats made him resign, but he, grabbed a female state trooper by the stomach or the butt or something. He did was grabbing people inappropriately, so he had to leave for that. She ascends to being the governor of New York, wears a vaccine necklace and says the vaccine is a gift from God. I honestly think she has an IQ in the low 80s. And I call it like it is. She's running against Lee Zeldin, who's a serious guy, a smart guy. And she had to call out the DA in Manhattan and say, yeah, that was like, this is a problem. When you have the crazy axe-wielding guy out within 2 hours, no bail, and hope that he shows up at court and hope that he's actually punished in some way that he realizes you can't threaten strangers with an axe because you're having a bad day. When the governor of New York is calling it out, that's because the Democrats have a problem.
I saw a headline, and I couldn't help but laugh. I think it was the New York Post said, and the headline was, and I'm paraphrasing here, it was something like, Axe guy says he's misunderstood, not really violent. When you're referred to as Axe guy, and saying, I guess he did an interview saying that he was misunderstood. He's not really a bad guy. He just had a rough day, as one does. He pulled his axe out and started chopping up McDonald's. But it's not really him, that what you saw in that video. It is pretty funny to think about axe guy claiming that he's just misunderstood. But that's the world that we live in now, where, criminals don't even go to jail. You got guys with axes. As I pointed out, unless you are a fireman in New York City, I would think the number of people who really need an axe to go to McDonald's for any reason,
there's not a lot of wood chopping going on in Midtown Manhattan.
Not a lot of trees that need to be brought down. I wouldn't imagine on a regular basis. Not a lot of lumber business on the lower. That was down near Tribeca, right?
Yeah, it was downtown. It was on Delancey, so I guess it's Lower East Side. Did I get that right, Producer Allie? I've only lived here almost 40 years. There we go. Yeah.
So I thought that was just a perfect representation. But those stories, what I'm talking about, there is a violent, viral crime video in every single major city in America. And all of you listening to me right now can think in your head of a story that you have seen recently that has made you feel unsafe as we are back into a high crime era in the United States. Buck, I'm looking at the numbers. I think there is a strong argument. New Hampshire is still new because we just had last Tuesday the selection of the nominee. So it's hard to get a read on exactly what's going to happen there with Maggie Hassan, who is the existing senator, and Donald Baldock, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who is going to be the Republican candidate. And we probably should get him on at some point to introduce him to our audience. But the trend lines right now, Georgia, I really believe Herschel Walker is going to win. That's going to be a flip. You just heard from Dr. Oz. I think he's going to beat Fetterman.
He sounds dialed in, man. He is a very, very compelling case he's making.
He is. I mean, he can actually talk, which is
helpful.
Something that
I was going to say there is that advantage. Yes.
Yeah. When you're a senator and you're basically selling your ideas, being able to communicate and or speak is important, and Fetterman cannot do that. I think Dr. Oz is going to win in Pennsylvania. Our guy Ron Johnson on with us a lot. I think he's starting to pull away. Honestly, in Wisconsin, I think he is going to win. I believe Kari Lake is a friggin' rock star in Arizona. Every time I watch her speak, I just think she is incredible. I think
how
she's
long
win
after,
big.
assuming she wins, by the way, Clay, which I agree with you, she's doing a great. How long before you start to see just the beginnings of the Kari Lake is worse than Donald Trump from the libs, more terrifying than Trump.
It's a credit to Kari Lake that her campaign is going so well. One of the top criticisms that Democrats are trying on her now is she's going to be the vice president. You're kicking ass when people are like, this job isn't good enough for you. You're going to have a bigger job, but that's how good she's doing.
And they know that, let's just say, playing this out for a second, a lot of things have to happen, but let's say Trump runs, she's his VP, and she's saying she wants to run Arizona, and I think she does. She wants to be the governor and make her state better. But let's just say that all happened. I mean, she would be within 2 years, she'd be effectively running for president. So the libs, the chance of them freaking out. Now we're getting many steps down the pathway here. I get that. But, they've already started to run the Ron DeSantis is worse than Trump, which is my favorite, of the low-T panic lib stuff you see out there. DeSantis is even scarier, even bigger threat to democracy than Trump is among the most amusing genre of lib.
And I will say also, this is why you can't respect anybody who's anti-Trump and claims that they're still a Republican. Okay? And I'm talking about in the public sphere. There are many people out there who are voting that might say, hey, I'm not a big fan of Trump. But if you're out there saying, oh, I'm trying to save our democracy, I'm a Republican who's against Trump, they're going to pivot and be a Republican who's against whoever replaces Trump.
Are you,
right?
you calling out Scarborough here for King of the Panhandle? What's going on?
King of the I am definitely King of the Panhandle now. But Panhandle of Florida for people who don't know. But for everybody out there, you're already seeing Liz Cheney do this, right? She's like, oh, my relevance is based on being anti-Trump. But if Trump's not the nominee, she's going to be like, well, in many ways, DeSantis is worse than Trump. But Kari Lake is going to win, and I think she's going to crush in Arizona.
By the way, we got a message from a VIP caller as well. We're having all these great candidates on. We want to expose them to the whole country as much as possible, and obviously in those home states, because this audience listening can move the needle in these states. But we got somebody, a drive-by caller, Rhonda, said, have on Heidi Grenal from Colorado. So I think we might have to have on the Republican contender in Colorado next. I think we should reach out.
Yeah, look, we did on yesterday. We had on Tiffany Smiley, who may well win in Washington against Patty Murray. We had Christine Drazen, who was phenomenal today in Oregon. A lot of different states out there. We're going to have a lot of people on. What I think about the Senate, Buck, is I think Republicans are going to win 5 of these 6 toss-ups. New Hampshire, I don't have a good read on right now.
This is a bold call. Team, we got to mark this one down. He's saying 5 of 6.
49 days out. I think that Republicans have a very good chance to win 5 of the 6 toss-up states in the Senate.
You know what I'm starting to see on the horizon, Clay? I'm starting to see it off in the distance. It's just beginning to surge, this red wave out there.